Prussia, a nation founded on the ideas of war and expansion. The precursor of Nazi Germany, Prussia would expand into one of the largest military powers ever created. So how did it get there, and what exactly was Prussia? Now is when things take a brief turn. Our next Frederick is Frederick William II, not to be confused with Frederick the Great, who was just Frederick II. Frederick William II didn't do great things to the economy, which had been doing really well under Frederick the Great. On top of this, he had no success against the armies of France under Napoleon, and by 1795 Napoleon managed to annex the German lands west of the Rhine. After him came Frederick William III, who was a bit more cautious than his father against Napoleon. He pursued neutrality with Napoleon, but eventually would go to war with him in 1806, and lose just like his father did. From that point on until the end of the Napoleonic Wars, Prussia was practically controlled by Napoleonic France. Luckily, while Napoleon was occupying Prussia, the country had time to start reforming, rebuilding, and learning from its mistakes against France, which just in several decades would prove to be a fruitful investment. By 1815, the end of the Napoleonic Wars, Prussia had regained much of its lost territory as part of the Concert of Europe, which was a territorial agreement after the war which sought to place a balance of power within all major countries of Europe. Fast forwarding to our final Frederick in Prussian history, Frederick William IV, who reigned from 1840 to 1861, he wanted to bring peace to Prussia, expand its influence throughout the North German region, and restore Prussia to a state similar to what it was during the Middle Ages in terms of art and culture. By 1848, mass revolutions broke out all over Europe, and especially in the German region. Prussia was able to put down many of their own rebellions. However, interestingly, Frederick William IV supported a lot of these ideas in the 1848 revolutions. And so, similar to Britain's parliamentary system, Frederick William IV established his own parliament and constitution, which would last unchanged all the way up to the end of the First World War. After these large uprisings in 1848, the leaders of the many independent German states all came together in what was called the Frankfurt Assembly in 1849. Through nationalism, or the idea of patriotism based on language and culture, many of the German states suggested a mutual political unification of the German region. Frederick William IV was actually offered the crown of this unified Germany, but refused, as he did not want to be a simple figurehead. He thought himself a divine ruler, and if Germany was to be unified at all, he wanted Prussia to be at the forefront. With that said, the German states were unable to come to any agreement in unifying Germany. In 1857, Frederick William IV would step down as king after having a stroke. His brother William, or Wilhelm I, became king of Prussia. Wilhelm I would also appoint Otto von Bismarck as his minister-president. Bismarck had one major goal in mind, and that was unification. Wilhelm gave him all of the power he needed to meet this goal, and then some. Bismarck was an absolute genius, and he knew how to work the political game, which he called playing realpolitik. First, Bismarck wanted to consolidate power domestically before he would have enough power to unify the German states, so he started by eliminating his rival, the Socialist Party in Prussia, but enacted several socialist laws to appease the movements. He, as a conservative, was also not really liked by liberals, so to then appease the liberals, he put laws in place to make Prussia more secular and less Catholic. And through a lot of political maneuvering, the domestic work was done. Otto von Bismarck by that time had arguably more power than the king, Wilhelm I. Bismarck would then start one of the most audacious plans in Prussian history, a series of 3 unification wars. First, he turned his eyes on Denmark to annex the Danish-owned German lands. With this nationalistic moves, the German states in the north would align closer to Prussia more than ever. Then, he turned on Austria to remove Austria's influence in southern Germany. With this, the South German states had no other choice than to be close to Prussia, and his last unification war would then be with an old rival. Even though the South German states didn't really like Prussia that much, there was still one enemy they hated the most: the French. So Bismarck knew in order to unify Germany, he needed to get the South German states fully on his side in a wave of nationalism and annex the French-owned German-speaking region of Alsace-Lorraine. Prussia and the German states went to war and won quickly and decisively. After these 3 wars, German nationalism was at its peak, with Prussia leading the charge, and by 1871 Prussia would unify all of these German states, besides Austria, into the German Empire. Wilhelm I became Emperor of Germany, and this new nation was introduced to the great powers of the world. Later in 1890, Otto von Bismarck was removed from power by the new emperor, Wilhelm II. And from there, under many leaders from many backgrounds, the German Empire would fight 2 of the largest wars in history, the First and Second World Wars. But that is a story for another day. That was a lot to get through, so sorry if I missed anything, but thank you for listening, and please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Nearly all comments will be replied to, so don't be afraid to ask any questions. To make videos like this possible, support the show on Patreon. With each donation, new goals can be met to make our channel better than ever. The links and sources are in the description, and thank you again for listening. We'll see you next time.